How do you embark on a righteous war? Going out there to destroy and to kill in a righteous manner. I like the way that he puts it, and he says, and I saw armies in heaven that followed him. And as he was leading this great army, it was as though he had a vesture that had been dipped in blood. That's what he was putting on. On his head were many crowns. Many crowns, because all the nations that you think are under different monarchs, they all belong.
Also went on to say this.
He's trying to help you understand that when he speaks, when Jesus speaks, his utterances, nothing can escape the penetration of his utterances, whether it's a rock.
Oh, shalom. Hello there. Welcome to the Watchers blog. Thank you for joining us today. Now, in this short video, we're going to be watching a teaching by Prophet Emmanuel Makandiwa as he was giving account on the creation of Jesus Christ. Prophet Makandiwa teaches on why specifically Christ had to be created and he was made into flesh, and the factoring in of the manifestation of the word into Christ. Now, to actually understand in depth, be sure to watch this video to the very end. Remember to also give this video a thumbs up so that YouTube recommends it to other believers like you. Remember to also subscribe if you didn't subscribe. Stay blessed. Shalom.
And the Word was made flesh.
It was after that the word had been made flesh that it what?
Dwelt
It
among us.
Then it dwelt among us. That's the reason why the word had to be made flesh. God's intention was for the word then to dwell. The dwelling of the word among us. And the word dwelt among us. It was after the dwelling of the word among us that then we beheld. We were made to see
His glory, and we beheld His glory.
My God. When the word dwells long enough, when it stays around you long enough, there is something else that you begin to see that you couldn't see from a very young age growing up until the word began to dwell. Then you begin to see, and what you begin to see more than everything else, it is the glory. You start seeing the glory. The glory is of the only begotten
Of the Father.
of the Father. My encouragement for you today is to just have the word dwell. Let it dwell. If you can allow the word to stay long enough and you saturate yourself in the very presence of the word of God. For how long, men of God? Until you begin to behold. If the word is to dwell, what follows after that are very strange visions that you begin to see. Manifestations of the glory as of the only begotten. So now we are made to understand that the word is able to dwell. dwelling of the word, where the word remains and we interact with the word and we converse with the word. The word talks to us and we talk to the word until we begin to see the glory. No longer having to wait for him to appear in the sky. We start seeing the glory of the only begotten. Not at the end of the age, but right now. As long as we can have the word dwelling among us, we can start seeing him. I want people to understand that, you see, when John, in chapter 19 of the book of Revelation, he says that, and then I saw the heavens, and the heavens were open. Now stop wondering whether this was in a vision or this was really happening. Either way, he saw the opening of the heaven. And then what he saw in there was a white horse. He could name the animal, and the color of the animal to him was so clear, it was white. And he that sat on the horse, the man that sat on the horse, his name was Faithful, and his other name was True. Faithful. The man was faithful. And he was true. And he goes on to describe the appearance of this man, that his eyes were like flames of fire. To think that a man's eye is able to see God's eye. What he sees there was in a fiery similitude. It was as though he was looking at a flame, two flames of fire. And yet those flames are the eyes of God. Faithful and true. He's riding on this horse. And then another very astounding description of this man that he was. He went on to judge in righteousness, meaning that his judgment was so righteous, and to make war. How do you embark on a righteous war? Going out there to destroy and to kill in a righteous manner. I like the way that he puts it, and he says, and I saw armies in heaven that followed him. And as he was leading this great army, it was as though he had a vesture that had been dipped in blood. That's what he was putting on. On his head were many crowns. Many crowns, because all the nations that you think are under different monarchs, they all belong to him. He doesn't put on one crown, many crowns on his head. He is in charge of all the regions. He is in control of all the territories. Many crowns on one head. He is putting all of them on. Then the army And every member of that army was on his own white horse following this great man. And he had a name written on him which no man knew. Save him. He has a name. Yet John is able to know that that's a name written. Yet no man knows that name, and yet John is a man. And he says, oh my God. Oh my God. Why would they write a name if it's not meant to be read? And how did he knew that it was a name?
Yes, Father.
And his name was the Word of God. I like the part that says, and then when he spoke, look at the strategy, the kind of warfare. When he speaks, a sword will come out of his mouth.
Verse 15, Father. And out of his mouth goeth a sharp sword.
Goeth, there is a movement out of his mouth. He doesn't have a gun in his hand. All he does is to speak. He gives an order. When he speaks, something goes out of his mouth. And what comes out of his mouth, John is not even seeing a word. He sees a sword that goes out of his mouth. Now, when you see that kind of a revelation in the Spirit, whatever you see has to be subjected to thorough interpretation. Because some of you, when you hear such a description, you would think this was probably a knife that came out of his mouth. How is it possible that you can have a sword coming out of someone's mouth? Now, before we look even into that, what kind of war strategy is that you go out there to speak and you secure your victory by speaking? The entire army that follows him, if you look at their attire, they are all putting on white. Unlike any of the armies that we have seen, that's not what you put on. They are so much assured of the victory that we are going and we are coming back victorious without us having to fight. Given the kind of a commander that we have on the forefront, if he is to speak, there is something else that goes ahead of us. By the time that we arrive in the camp of the enemy, warfare is done. He speaks and something goes ahead of him. A sword. It's not a knife that comes out of his mouth. John is trying to help us appreciate how deep and how sharp and how further his word can penetrate. His declarations can penetrate. His conversations can penetrate into different matters of life. He's trying to help you understand that when he speaks, when Jesus speaks, his utterances Nothing can escape the penetration of his utterances, whether it's a rock, whether it is a mountain, whether it is clay. If he is to speak, his voice, his word goes out, and it is so sharp that it penetrates every area of your life.